All right, we'll say good morning. Let's begin. Today's daf is Chaf Zayin. We're going to pick up, I know you got a little bit further. Let's just pick up on the last three lines of Chaf Vav Amud Beis, 26b, Uba Kulan. I want to thank Rabbi Huda for giving the shir over the last couple of days. Also, we now have a Talmud Torah sponsor for the month of Iyar, an anonymous sponsor in the Zechusa of Refuah Shalema for Meir Halevi ben Sarah Leah. We hope that in the merit, Tzvi Meir Halevi ben Sarah Leah, we hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, Tzvi Meir should have a Refuah Shalema together with Kol Cholei Yisrael. I will say with that, let's begin. Ubekulan Yesh Poen Tovas on top of Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. Remember again, the Gemara, we are talking about the Matnos Kuhuna. Michael, could I borrow your card for a moment? Do you mind? Do you use it? Okay. Ubekulan Yesh Poen Tovas Hana. So we'll say Labailim. So remember again, all of these Matnos Kuhuna ultimately have a Tovas Hana for the Bailim. Now, both say what that means is Tovas Hana we've discussed before, which means that Halacha L'Maisa, the owner, the Yisrael, although I have to give away my Matnos Kuhuna, I have the right to choose who to give it to. That is considered to be a right that the Yisrael has within his Matnos Kuhuna. So the Keitzad, so the Gemara says, what's an example of this? Well, that's the example of this. So, Keitzad, Yisrael Shefesh Truma, it's actually very interesting. Yisrael Shefesh Truma Mekaryo, V'nimtza Yisrael Acher. Listen to this. So, I'm Yisrael. I'm separating out Truma from my pile. Truma becomes the property of the Kohen. And what happens? Umatzo Yisrael Acher, and another Yisrael runs into me. So, my Yisrael friend comes over to me after I've separated out Truma from my pile of produce. V'amarlo. And the second Yisrael says to me, the farmer, V'amarlo, Halucha Sela Zet, here is a Sela, accept this Sela, Utnehu leben biti Kohen. And do me a favor, give your Truma to my grandson who is a Kohen. So again, very simple idea. My Yisrael neighbor comes over to me. I'm Yisrael as well. He just saw me separate out my truma. He gives me $100. He says, well, sells. That's not ready. He gives me a seller. He says, do me a favor, accept this seller, and in recognition of this seller, give your truma to my grandson who is a Kohen, right? My neighbor's daughter married a Kohen. As a result, they have a child. That neighbor's grandson is a Kohen. So the neighbor is trying to secure my truma for his grandson, and he gives me money for it. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Mutter. Ultimately, again, this arrangement is absolutely mutter. Now remember again, why is it mutter? Because halacha l'maisa, I have the right to give my truma to whoever I want anyway. The fact that my neighbor is providing me with a financial incentive to give it to his grandson in no way takes away from there's nothing shady about that. That's totally fine. I have the right anyway. He's incentivizing me to give it to his grandson, no problem. But there is an exception to this rule. Listen to this. Im haya kohen lekohen aser. However, if my neighbor was a Kohen, and my neighbor Kohen wanted to give me money in order to what? In order to get me to give my truma to another Kohen, such an arrangement would be aser. Look at Rashi just a moment. Tap Rashi on the daf. Vim haya Kohen. No saint sela kadesh. Remember now. Let's say same case, but instead of my neighbor being Israel, my neighbor is a Kohen. My neighbor Kohen comes over to me after he sees me having separated my truma. He says, "Let me give you a sela, and do me a favor, give the truma to my grandson, who's also a Kohen." So what happens? So that case, the Gemara says is also why Rashi says, "Vim haya Kohen." No saint sela kadesh shetnu ala Kohen acher krovo. If a Kohen gave me a sela to give the truma to his relative who is a Kohen, aser. Why is that? So remember again in yesterday's daf, we had the concept of Kohen HaMesayeya Bebeis Hagranas, which is that a Kohen is not permitted to go. Actually, it's interesting. There's really two applications of that principle. So one is that the Kohen in general is not supposed to show up at the threshing floor, going ahead and what? Demanding his tithes, right? His portions. And the other piece we saw yesterday is that if the Kohen is a employee of the Yisrael, he's helping out in the Beis Hagranas, so the Yisrael should not give his truma to that Kohen, because it looks like then that the Kohanic portion is being given to the Kohen as a fee for services. And we're looking to go ahead and avoid that avoid that. So therefore, again, I will say in this situation over here, where the Kohen comes up, my Kohen neighbor comes over to me. Now remember again, my Kohen neighbor is technically speaking what? Entitled to the truma itself. I don't have to give it to him because I have the right to choose who I want to give it to, but technically he's entitled to it. If he gives me a sela to go ahead and give it to his grandson or to someone else, so the Gemara says that's aser because that has the appearance of Kohen Messiah Lebeis Hagranos. Then that has the appearance that the truma is ultimately against some type of fee for service. So the same arrangement which is mutter with the Yisrael will be aser with a Kohen. So the Gemara says, "V'tana my time alo kamar matnos kuna." So I'll say, so here's what's interesting. So just say follow the progression of this statement here, which is like this. So remember again, the way this section began is ubekulon yesh bahen tovas hana. In all cases of matnos kahuna, I, the Yisrael, have tovas hana. I have the right to go ahead and give it to whom I want. If you'll notice again, when the Brisa illustrates this principle, it only illustrates it with what? With truma. So why are you only illustrating this with truma? I mean, there are many different matnos kuna. There's ra lechayayim and keva. There's chazei v'shok. There's many different things. So why are you only illustrating it with truma? The Tana, my Taima lo kamer matnos kuna. Why is the Tana only illustrating this with truma and not focusing on other matnos kuna? Amar Lacha, I'll tell you why. Truma, the Kedushas HaGufi. So we'll say Truma, remember, is a bit different than other matnos kuna. Why? Because it has Kedushas HaGuf. What we'll say means Truma itself cannot become deconsecrated. Right? Truma cannot become redeemed. Truma has physical sanctity. Therefore, because Truma has physical sanctity, since it cannot be redeemed, lo asila mit ebe, the Kohen who receives it cannot make any kind of mistake regarding it. Now, what does that mean? Take a look at Rashi for just a moment. The Kedushas Hagofi, Rashi says, everyone knows that Truma cannot be redeemed and go out to Chulin. Well, listen to this. Everyone knows that Truma cannot be redeemed. Because Truma cannot be redeemed, let's play this out. So in a case where ultimately, again, in the case number one, where my Yisrael neighbor came to me, right? And my Yisrael neighbor said to me, listen, Silber, you just separated out your Truma. Here's a Sela. Give your Truma to my Kohen grandson. When my Kohen grandson gets that Truma, we're not afraid that he's going to erroneously think that what? That maybe his Kohen Zeda redeemed the Truma, and therefore the grandson can now do with the Truma whatever he wants. Why won't the grandson think that? Because everyone knows that Truma cannot be redeemed. Everyone knows that. Therefore the grandson knows that Baruch Hashem, because of the generosity of his grandfather, he got this matnos kuna, but he's got to treat it with sanctity. Back to the Gemara. However, Hani, other matnos kuna, Kevan de Kedushas Damim Ninhu, since I will say other matnos kuna, like for example, matanos like Zro Lechayayim and Keva, things like that, and Bechar, which what? The Kedushas Damim Ninhu, we'll say those have financial sanctity, not physical sanctity. Therefore what? Asi limite bahon. The Kohen grandson, when he gets it, may come to erroneously think that because his Yisrael grandfather was able to secure it for him, how? By giving the Yisrael owner some money, maybe mischal kedusha saihu arba zuzi. Perhaps again the Kohen grandson will mistakenly think that these items have been redeemed for the money that his grandfather gave to me. Va'asil minag bahon minag dechulin, and he will come ultimately to treat it like chulin. So as I said, therefore again, if you look at Rashi says just a moment over here, Tischal kedusha sayu arba zuzi, diyav avi imo dahainu dalad zuzi, va'asila minag behu minag dechulin. Rashi says, shlo yochleim bitzli ubechardol kedinam hamafurish v'harak azra v'lechaim v'akeva umishum hachi lo taninhu. So we'll say, so essentially the Gemara answers as follows. Although on a technical level, the halacha is that I, the Yisrael, have tovas hana with all matnos kuna. So this is a principle. Whenever it comes to Kohanic portions, I, the Yisrael, have the right to give it to whichever Kohen I want, which is very important, I will say, because remember, on one hand, even though every Kohen is entitled to it, if a Kohen shows up at my door and he says, listen, I heard you have Truma, give it to me, I have every right to say, no. I have to give it to a member of the Kahuna, but I have the right to choose ultimately which Kohen I give it to. And that concept applies to all Matnos Kahuna. The reason that the Gemara chooses to, and not only that, but also I am permitted to entertain offers and financial incentives. So if Kohanim want to show up at my, right, or I should say if Yisraelim want to show up and encourage me to give my Matnos Kahuna to different Kohanim, I have the right to field, the best offer out there. I have the right to do that. And on a technical level, that really applies to any type of matnos kuna. The reason the Gemara only illustrates this concept with truma is because with other matnos kuna there was a concern that if it winds up in the Kohen's hand, because a relative of the Kohen gave me, the Yisrael, a financial incentive to give it to this Kohen, that Kohen may think that the items have been deconsecrated and therefore treat it in a chulin manner. But with Truma, where everyone knows that it can't be deconsecrated, we're not concerned that the Kohen will come to treat it in a chulin manner. That's why the Gemara chooses to illustrate this concept or this principle with Truma. Good. So let's say, so that's our first piece. Tavasana. Next. Amrava. We'll say another interesting piece. Amrava. Truma schutz la'aretz ein ba mishum Kohen ha'meseh be'sagranas. We'll say next. Truma schutz la'aretz. You say to yourself, Truma schutz la'aretz. What is that? Where do you ever find a So remember again, Truma is a mitzvah tuluya ba'aretz. It refers to Eretz Yisrael produce. Not so. What's Truma schutz la'aretz? So this is amazing. Look at Rashi. Truma schutz la'aretz derabanan hi v'yochol litna l'kohen v'so. Let's listen to this. So apparently, halacha l'maisa, there was at some point in time historically a Truma derabanan that applied to chutz la'aretz. Where did it apply? To lands in close proximity to Eretz Yisrael. So lands that bordered on Eretz Yisrael, where again, we'll say you would have probably more of a concern of a movement of produce across borders. So halach l'maaseh Chazal, where goes are on certain lands that their produce should be subject to rabbinic truma. Okay, midrabanan. Now watch this. So now we're going to spend a little bit of time speaking about some of the aspects of this truma midrabanan. So Rava says, first, number one, truma schutz la'aretz. Ein ba mishum Kohen ha'meseh be'sagranas. So we'll say halacha number one is that when it comes to the truma of chutz la'aretz, there is no isser of Kohen ha'meseh be'sagranas. Which we'll say means what? Which means that even if I have a Kohen working for me in my threshing floor, I can what? I can give him that truma, and there's no concern that it looks like a fee for service. Even if it is a fee for service, it doesn't really make a difference, since this is truma midrabanan. And the Gemara gives an example of this. Rav Chama yoav le l'shamei. Rav Chama used to give his truma dirabanan, right, his rabbinic truma, to his servant, who apparently, again, Rashi says, was a Kohen. So he had a servant, ultimately, who was actively working for him, and he used to give his truma dirabanan to this servant. Amr Shmuel, another example, or another halacha. Again, all fascinating. Truma schutz la'aretz betela barov. So we'll say, let's talk about that in just a moment. General truma, right? Truma is Eretz Yisrael. What's the bittul ratio? 100 to 1. Right? 100 to 1 is the bittul ratio for truma. Truma schutz la'aretz is batal barov. Now we'll say batal barov is what? A 2 to 1 ratio. Right? Literally batal barov, a simple 2 to 1 ratio. So Shmuel says, Truma schutz la'aretz is batal barov. Rashi says, batal barov li'ochla lizar. So we'll say to the point that if truma dirabanan, truma schutz la'aretz, gets mixed in with other items, as long as there is a 2 to 1 ratio of other item to truma schutz la'aretz, then what? The mixture is mutter and can be consumed by a non-Kohen. Rashi says, v'lo baya echad umeya. It doesn't require a 100 to 1 ratio. Ula'achar she'ir ba berov chulin yachal le'echal zar o Kohen b'mei tuma la'achar shebitla. So we'll say, and once it becomes batla in a 2 to 1 ratio, then what? A non-Kohen could eat it, or for that matter, a Kohen who becomes tamei can eat it as well. Now listen to this. So I said, Rabba mevatla berov. Rabba used to go ahead and be mevatal his truma schutz la'aretz berov, and what? Va'ochala b'mei tumaso. And he dafka would eat it when he was tamei. So we'll say again, remember, kohanim when they're tamei have to have, can't obviously eat of certain consecrated items. So Rashi says, interesting, Rabbi says over here, kohen haya midebeis eli kasi. That's actually an interesting one. We'll say Rabbi, remember again, was a Kohen, and he was a descendant, ultimately again, of Beis Eli. But remember again, he was a descendant of Eli Kohen. Remember again, the Gemara Rosh Hashanah discusses this idea that halacha l'maisa, there was a curse upon the members, the male members, this is a Navi, the male members of the house of Eli, that they would die young. So the Gemara discusses certain descendants of Eli who enjoyed longevity, and the Gemara ultimately attributes that to what? Attributes that to their Torah and their Talmud Torah and their Chesed. So Rabbah was one of those examples, a descendant of Eli. So Rabbah would go ahead and be mevatel trumas chutz la'aretz, and he would go ahead and he would have it ultimately in his days of Tumah, when he was Tameh. So I just want to point out something very interesting. Now, when we see one more line, then we'll point this out. Rav Huna, the son of Rabbi Yoshua, kimis ramilei chamra de truma. When he would have truma wine, this is truma chutz la'aretz, right? Truma d'Rabbanan. So when he would have truma wine, truma of chutz la'aretz, hava rami trei natli d'chulin, he would go ahead and what? He would take 2 ladlefuls of chulin wine, v'chada natla l'truma, and 1 ladleful of truma wine. V'shakil chad mik. So, before we get to that, so kimsam v'chamer truma havirami trei natli d'chulin v'chada natla d'truma. So we'll say first thing that he would do is what? He would pour in 1 ladleful of truma wine and 2 ladlefuls of chulin wine. Therefore, doing what? Being mavatal the truma and chulin. You see 2 chidushim in this. What are the 2 chidushim? Number 1, that truma chutz la'aretz ultimately is batal barov. That's number 1. Truma d'Rabbanan is batal barov. We'll say number 2 is what? That you can be mavatal it l'chatchila. Let's remember again, normally, right, Bittul 101 tells you that what? Bittul is an ex post facto halacha. If it happens, then it's batal. You cannot be mevatal something, right? We'll say if you happen to find your, a wonderful chicken soup recipe, that mamish, all it calls for is 1 drop of milk. 1 drop of milk, and mamish is going to be like Tam Gan Eden, right? That's all it requires. What's 1 drop of milk? It's bottle 1, in 1,000. But you're not allowed to do that, right? If the drop of milk falls in by itself, it's not like drop of milk falls in by itself, wink, wink, right? No, meaning if it falls in by itself, then it's batal. But if you have anything, if that's a premeditated act in any way, then halacha l'maisa, the laws of bittul do not work. So ultimately, again, I will say, I'm just pointing out over here, this is a case of being mevatel something biadayim, bittul l'chatchila, where you're actively causing the bittul scenario. So not only is truma chutz la'aretz, which is truma d'Rabbanan, batal barov, but you actually have the ability to be gorein that bittul l'chatchila. So watch Rav Huna Yeshua is taking, he has trumas chutz la'aretz wine. And what is he doing? He's taking 1 ladleful of that wine, mixing it in with 2 ladlefuls of chulin. He's pouring all of this into a barrel. So now what happens? He's got 2 ladles of chulin wine to 1 ladle of truma wine, and therefore the mixture, the truma wine is batal. Then what happens? V'chad natal truma, v'shakil chad mikan, v'shakil chad, and then afterwards he would go ahead and he would remove 1 ladleful of wine from that to drink. Mikan ve'ilach, rami chada v'shakil chada. After that, he would introduce 1 ladleful of wine and drink 1 ladleful of wine. So the idea is that once that bittul mixture is created, therefore again we assume that there is a rove of chulin, and even if he subsequently introduced more truma wine into that mixture, it would be batal. Good. So we'll say, so that's halacha number 1. So halacha number 1 is that the law of kohen mesiyah bebeis hagranus does not apply with trumas chutz la'aretz. Halacha number 2, trumas chutz la'aretz is batal barov. Number 3, Rabbi Shmuel, trumas chutz la'aretz ochel v'holech v'achar kach mafresh. What's another interesting halacha? Trumas chutz la'aretz, you could continuously eat and only separate a truma at the end. Now watch this. If you look at Rashi, we'll say under normal circumstances, what's the halacha? You're supposed to separate a truma before you partake of anything. Trumas chutz la'aretz, you are permitted to eat first, separate out later. And you could continue to eat as long as what? You make sure that you leave enough at the end for truma. Next, Rabbi Shmuel, ein trumas chutz la'aretz asura, ela b'mi shatuma yotza lav migufo. But it's another interesting halacha. Trumas chutz la'aretz, which is, again, truma derabbanan, is only ushered to someone who becomes tamei because of a tumah, which is as a result of something internal in the body. Right? So also remember again, there are two different ways you could contract tumah. You could contract tumah from an outside source, you touch a corpse, or you could become tamei ultimately again through some type of internal tumah. Nida, zava, balkeri. These are forms of tumah ultimately again that occur from inside of the body. So therefore Shmuel says, ein chutz la'aretz asura ela b'misha tumah yotza lav migufo. Trumas chutz la'aretz shuma d'rabbanan will only be ushered to someone who becomes tamei as a result of something internal occurring in the body. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Actually, not yet. I'm sorry. The Gemara says, "V'hani mili," and when is that so? V'hani mili ba'achila. Both say that's true also that if you have what we call a tumah hayotze migufo, right? That a tumah that emanates from inside of the body, that you can't go ahead, that your tumah legabi trumas chutz la'aretz, that's only true for consumption. You cannot consume trumas chutz la'aretz if you become tamei as from a form of tumah that comes from inside of the body. Aval b'negia, but in terms of touching trumas chutz la'aretz, less lan ba. They both say if you are tamei, if it's a tumah yotze min haguf, a tumah that comes from the body, then you can't eat trumas chutz la'aretz, but you can touch it. In other words, they both say so listen to this distinction. When it comes to consumption, if you become tamei from an outside source, you could eat trumas chutz la'aretz. If you become tamei from an internal source, you cannot eat trumas chutz la'aretz. But whether you become tamei from an external source or internal source, you are permitted to what? Touch trumas chutz la'aretz. Therefore, I will say, right, good. Amar Ravina, Hilchach, Ravina, this is a very important application here, which is Hilchach, Nida, Kotze Chala. Therefore, I will say the halacha l'maisa, a woman who is a nida. This is talking about now. We're going to see chalas chutz la'aretz. Therefore, nida kotza chala va'ocha la kohen katan. Therefore, I will say a nida is permitted to go ahead and separate out chala, and she can give that chala to a kohen who is a katan. If you look at Rashi, Rashi says over hilchach the benegia in a musar. Now, I will say, remember again, nida is an example ultimately of a tumah hayotze megufa, of a type of tumah that is generated internally. So therefore now we'll say a woman who is a nida and can separate out chala and give that to a kohen who is a katan. Now Rashi points out over here, nida, first white line in Rashi, nida kotze la chala va'achela kohen katan v'lo gadol mipnei shatuma yotza lav migufo v'imtava la karya harika katan. L'shnachin, so we'll say, we're not going to get into this now, but Rashi and Tosas have different ideas over here as to why dafka it's a kohen katan. It's not really material for our conversation right now. For our purposes, what we see is that a nida is permitted to go ahead and touch chala. Why is she permitted to touch chala? Remember again, this is chalos chutz la'aretz, right? So ultimately again, this is tumah yotze migufa. This is negia, right? This is not achila. Therefore, she can go ahead and touch it. She can give it to a kohen katan, v'ileka kohen katan, and if there is no kohen katan, ultimately for her to give it to, shakla la b'reish masa, she puts the chala on a spit. V'shadja b'tanura, she throws it into the oven to burn it. Meaning, if there's no kohen to give it to, she burns the chala. But she should then separate out another form of chala, which is not real chala, I will say, just symbolic chala, in order that the halachas of chala not be forgotten, and she gives it to a regular kohen. She can give it to a regular kohen ultimately again because this is not real chala to begin with. So I will say, the point of, without getting into all the technicalities of this case, the point of this case is supposed to be what? An illustration of the previously stated principle, which is that halacha l'maisa, chalos chutz la'aretz can be consumed by someone who contracted tumah if it's an external tumah, but ultimately not an internal tumah. But in terms of negia, in terms of contact with trumas chutz la'aretz is permitted even with someone who contracted tumah internally and not externally. B'haraya, ultimately the case of the nida with the chala. Beautiful. Rav Nachman v'Rav Amram v'Rav Bar Chama. What's an interesting ma'isa? Rav Nachman, Rav Amram, Rav Bar Chama, these three great rabbanim, havika azla ba'arva. We're traveling by boat. Salik Rav Amram lefanuye. So Rav Amram had to take leave of the other two to relieve himself. Asoyahi isisa, alas kamahu. So when Rav Amram was away taking care of his personal needs, a woman came to the other two men, and she asked them a shaila. Amr lehu, tamemes, mahu sheyitbal v'yochal trumas chutz la'aretz. So she asked an interesting shaila. If someone is tamei tumas meis, someone came in contact with a corpse, and the person went to the mikvah, but didn't yet what? Didn't have hair of shemesh. So most of the normal circumstances, when you become tamei, going to the mikvah is not enough. You need to go to the mikvah and what? And allow for sunset. Let's say you have someone who was tamei tumas meis. He went to the mikvah, didn't have hair of shemesh, right? The sun didn't go down. So the shaila is he permitted to eat trumas chutz la'aretz before having hair of shemesh? Good shaila. Right? Can he partake of Shumas Chutz La'aretz before hair of Shemesh? Okay. Amarei Rav Nachman Rav Bar Chama. So also Rav Nachman turns to Rami Bar Chama and he says to him, Amud Beis, V'chi hazah yesh lanu. Forget about hair of Shemesh. They both say, if you become Tamei Tumas Meis, what's the halacha? What do you really need to become tar? Paraduma. So remember again, hair of shemesh, I will say, is the least of the issues over here. We don't even have para aduma. So if you don't have para aduma, so we assume that it's enough to what? It's enough to go to the mikvah. Remember again, this is rabbinic truma. It's enough to go to the mikvah. You go to the mikvah, and you don't need hair of shemesh. Look at Rashi. Top Rashi Chav Zayin Amud Beis. V'chi hazah yesh lanu bizman hazeh. Do we have the sprinkling of the ashes of the para aduma during this time? D'chivan dein achshav hazah bizman hazeh. Since we don't have hazah, since we don't have sprinkling of the ashes of the para aduma in this time, hair of shemesh nami loboy. So I'll say, so Rav Nachman posits that since at the end of the day we don't have the ashes of the paraduma now anyway, therefore what? Therefore again we shouldn't require hair of shemesh either. So we'll say, listen to this. Shamali Rami Bar Chama lo leichosh leila saba. So we'll say, Rami Bar Chama says to Rav Nachman, do you think we should wait for Saba? Saba is a reference to Rav Amram. Remember again, Rav Amram was the elder sage of the three. He was not there for this shaila. He had excused himself to take care of his needs. So this is amazing. So Rav Nachman is ready to answer the shaila. Of course you could go ahead and eat trumas chutz la'aretz without hair of shemesh. All you need is to go to the mikvah. That's fine. To which Rabbi Bar Chama says, no, maybe we should wait for Rav Amram. We should wait for the Saba. So Adahachi as Rav Amram. So as they're having this discussion, Rav Amram comes back. So and they pose the question before Rav Amram, and Rav Amram says, Amar lahu hachi amar Rav. This is what Rav said. Tamei meis tovel va'ochel b'trumas chutza la'aretz. So it's interestingly enough, so Rav Amram said, you know what? You're right. Rav said that the halacha is that if someone was tamei tumas meis and he wants to eat trumas chutza la'aretz, which is truma d'Rabbanan, all he needs to do is what? Go to the mikvah, and he doesn't require hair of shemesh. Doesn't require the sunset, but comes along Rav Amram and says, "V'les hilchasa kavasei." But we don't paskin like Rav. Instead, we say that what? Hair of shemesh is absolutely required. I will say, this is actually interesting. You see from here sometimes one of the distinctions between being a Talmid Chacham and being a Talmid Chacham with life experience. You see, a Talmid Chacham could possess a lot of knowledge. Life experience, right, often tells you what's done and what's not. So the Talmid Chacham of any age could have a lot of. See, here you have Rav Amram saying, yes, Rav did say that in fact the halacha is that for Trumas Chutz La'aretz, if you become Tamei Tumas Meis, all you need to do is go to the mikvah, and you don't require hair of shemesh. But Rav Amram says, but just you should know that's not the way we conduct ourselves. That's not what we do. So the Gemara goes weiter. Da Amar Mar Zutra Mishmei Rav Sheshes Tamei Sheretz. We'll say another similar case. If someone was Tamei Tumas Sheretz, which means they came in contact with a sheretz, a rodent. So we'll say what happens? Tovel va'ocha b'trumas chutza la'aretz. So ultimately, and so we'll say this is Mar Zutra saying in Rav Sheshes that for trumas chutz la'aretz, if you came in contact with tumas sheretz, you can go to the mikvah and you do not require hair of shemesh. The less hilchas hakavasei. But Rabbi say this is not how we paskin. We paskin that either for Tumas Sheretz, which is a more minor form of Tumah, or for that matter, again, for, let's say, Trumas Chutzlarts, which is only rabbinic in nature, halacha lemaisa, not only do you require tefillah in a mikvah, but what you also require Harav Shem, which I will say something very interesting, which, see, the more compelling piece over here is regarding Tumas Meis. Because ultimately, again, remember what Rav Nachman was saying was a very interesting point. He was saying, listen, anytime we're tovel for Tumas Meis, anyway, it's deficient. Why is it deficient? Because at the end of the day, you don't have azah, right? You don't have the sprinkling of the paraduma. If it's deficient anyway, then what? Then you shouldn't have to wait for Ha'er of Shemesh. To which Rav Amram says, you're right, but you're wrong. Meaning on a technical level, you're right, but that's not how we conduct ourselves. Even though we don't have the Afar Para Aduma, and therefore, again, the purification process for Tumas Meis is deficient, you still require Ha'er of Shemesh. Rabbi say yields an incredible musar. What's the incredible musar? So I say sometimes we think that in life and in Yiddishkeit, it's all or nothing. Either I'm going to get it all right or not. And if I don't get it all right, then it's not worth anything. Either I'm going to go ahead and be totally tar, or you're not tar at all. To which Rav Amram says, it's not true. I'll say sometimes even if you can't become totally tar, you try to achieve the level of tara that is within reach. I would love to be totally tar. That requires the Efer of the Para Aduma. I don't have that Efer. In the absence of the ability to become completely and unequivocally tar, I'll try to become as tar as I can in the circumstances I have. An incredible musar. Says the Gemara. And we'll say that's when Rav Amram says, Les hilchos hakavasei, that's what he's saying. He's saying life is not an all or nothing thing. We don't say either you're tameh or you're tar. At the end of the day, sometimes you just have to try to become as tahar as you can in the circumstances that you have. Good. The Gemara goes weiter. Bechor nechal shana b'shana. It's supposed to be again going back to the Mishnah. So the Mishnah stated a very important halacha, which is habechor nechal shana b'shana. The bechor could be or should be consumed within the year. Bein tam bein bal mum. Whether the bechor is a tam or whether the bechor is a bal mum. Shne'amar lefnei Hashem lokecha tochlanu shana b'shana. So remember the Mishnah said, Nolad lo mum b'tzoch shnaso rashay lekaima kol shnei masar chodesh. If ultimately, again, the bechor developed a mum within its first year, you have up to that first year to go ahead and shecht it, right? Because also the concern over here is if you go ahead and you keep the bechor around for too long, what are we concerned about? Giza v'avoda. We're concerned that you're going to come to shear the animal or work the animal. Therefore, within the year, you have to do something to utilize the animal, to shecht it and to consume it. So it says the Gemara, Midika Amar Nolad Bomum Bisoch Shnaso Lamemra Dilashana Didei Manina. So let's listen to this. Here's the interesting question. When we talk about the year of the Bechar, what year are we referring to? Is it a year as counted from the birth of the Bechar? Or is it a calendrical year? So for example, let's say the Bechar is born in Iyar. So how do you measure a year? Is it Iyar 5779 and a year starting from now? Or do we say the year 5779 started when? Tishrei. And when does that year end? When does that year end? At the end of Elul of this year. So the Gemara says, the fact that the Mishnah said, Nolad bo mum besoch shnaso, that if a mum developed within its year possessive, Lememra dishana didei manina. They're both saying ultimately when counting the year, we count by the actual birth of the animal. The year, the clock started when the animal is born and is not defined, 12 months from the time the animal is born, but not defined by the calendrical year. So the Gemara says, from where do I know this? Both say the pasuk says by the Bechor, you shall eat it before Hashem your God, shana b'shana. Ezehu shana shenechneses bechaverta. Both say which is the year that runs into its fellow year. Havi omer shana shal Bechor. I would say this refers to the year of the Bechor. Look at Rashi. Zu shana shal Bechor. Rashi says, Kilomar dichi azlis achar shnas ha-Bechor havi nechnesas bechaverta. They will say if you go after the 12 months as counted from the birth of the Bechor, you almost inevitably will have what? you will have 1 year going into the other. In other words, we'll say, unless of course the Bechor is born on Aleph Tishrei, by definition, what's going to happen? The year of the Bechor will be Shana B'Shana. We'll go from one calendrical year into the next. Rashi says, "Havi nichneses bechaverta, techi havi lebechor shana achas nichneses shnia leminyan olam mitishrei." Good. The Shabbos say therefore that's a raya that ultimately is shana b'shana, goes from 1 year to the next because the 12 months are counted from the birth of the Bechor. The Bei Rav Tana shana b'shana yom echad b'shana zu yom echad b'shana zu. So Shabbos says, listen to this. In the yeshiva of Rav, they used that drasha to teach something else. What does Shana B'Shana teach me? Shana B'Shana teaches me that ultimately, again, you take 1 day from this year and 1 day from next year. What does that mean? That teaches me Limeit ala Bechor shene'echa l'shnei yom v'layla echa. That teaches me that, in fact, the window of consumption for the Bechor, that once the Bechor is offered up, I will say, how long can you eat the Bechor for? Shana B'Shana, meaning I will say even 1 day this year, 1 day next year, i.e., 2 days and 1 night. Limeid al Bechor shene'echa l'shnei yom v'layla echa. The window of consumption for the Bechor is 2 days and 1 night. So I'll say, so interestingly enough, machlokes in the limit of Shana B'Shana. Does Shana B'Shana teach me that the 12 months of the Bechor are started from the birth of the Bechor, and therefore inevitably go from one calendrical year to the next? Or maybe Shana B'Shana teaches me about the window of consumption, that ultimately, again, you could have a window that goes from 1 year to the next. What does that teach me? That the window of consumption is 2 days and 1 night. To Bei Rav Minalu, so we'll say ultimately again in the yeshiva of Rav, so from where do they know that the 12 months is counted from the birth of the Bechor and is not a calendrical year? Yalfi mikadshim. They learn that halacha from kadshim. The kadshim gufay milan, that's nice, but where do we learn out kadshim from? So Amar Rav Acha Bar Yaakov Amar Kra Keves ben Shnaso. We'll say the pasuk says. The pasuk says ultimately again, Keves ben Shnaso, Shnaso shalo v'lo shana shal minyan olam. Teaches us that when it comes to sacrificial items, right, the Keves ben Shnaso, it is the Keves' year, meaning that ultimately again, when dealing with anything regarding timing of sacrificial items, that clock is started by the birth of the sacrificial item and not by the calendrical year. Rav, we'll say, where does Rav know that the Bechor can be eaten for 2 days and 1 night? Nafkale mi ubisaram yelecha kechazeh hatnufa ukeshog hayamim. We'll say we learn that from the fact that the Torah says that the basar, the flesh of the Bechor, shall be to the Kohen like the chazeh, like the chest, and like the thigh. So what do you see from here? Hekishan hakasav lechazeh v'shok shal shlamim. The Torah is equating, or the Torah is comparing the meat of the Bechor to ultimately, again, the chest and the thigh of the shlamim. To teach me what? Rabbi say, last line, Chavzayin Amud Beis, Ma lahalon shnei yom v'layla echad. Rabbi say, just like the chazeh and shok of shlamim can be consumed for 2 days and 1 night, afkan shnei yom v'layla echad, so too when it comes to the meat of the Bechor, you get 2 days and 1 night. The idach, and about the other opinion, Imi Hasam will say as follows. So we'll say, so the other opinion will say, if you learn it Imi Hasam, if you learn it out from here, meaning from Chazei v'Shok, Ikala Meimar Chazei v'Shok Shal Toda. How do you know that the Torah is coming to compare the meat of Bechor ultimately to what? To the Chazei and Shok of Shlamim? Maybe it's coming to compare it to the Chazei and Shok ultimately of Toda. We'll say the halach is the Chazei and Shok of Toda. The window of consumption for that is 1 day and 1 night. The idach, the other opinion will say, Amakra l'cha yihiyeh. The pasuk by Bechor says, it will be for you. Hosif l'cha kasov havi acheres. Torah is coming to include an additional having. Additional having teaches me that ultimately, again, it gets more than the simple chazei v'shok. Even if you want to compare it to the chazei v'shok of Toda, which only gets 1 day and 1 night, l'cha yihiyeh teaches me that there's an additional having, quote unquote, of the Bechor, which teaches me I get it for an additional day. Okay? V'idach, the other opinion will say, Imi Hasam changes it. Imi Hasam, Ika l'meimar hayeh l'cha, limeid al Bechor b'amum shenosna l'kohen. But I'll say ultimately again, no, you need that Diyeh Lecha to teach you something else, which is that even that a Bechor that is a Baal Mum goes to the Kohen. Shelo matzinu lo b'chalat Torah kula. Because we'll say in general again, we don't find that other sacrificial items when they are a Baal Mum are given to the Kohen. Therefore, Lecha yet teaches me that even if this is a Baal Mum, it is given to the Kohen. V'idach, the other opinion will say, u'bisaram, and the pasuk says, and its flesh will go to the Kohen. Echad tam ve'echad Baal Mum. That comes to teaching that whether the Bechor is a tam or a Baal Mum, it goes to the Kohen. V'idach, the other opinion will say, u'bisaram dahani Bechoros to kuli Yisrael. None of that Bisaram teaches me regarding the general halachos of all Bechoros belonging to a Yisrael. So I will say, so bottom line is one of these interesting cases where the limud itself is not subject to ziyut. Everyone is agreeing ultimately again, halacha l'maisa, on the halacha. The machlokes ultimately is just regarding the limud. But I will say, but for our purposes, what comes out as the bottom line halacha l'maisa is that the year, the clock, ultimately again for the Bechor, is started based on the birth of the Bechor, and ultimately it's not a calendrical year, but rather, I guess for lack of a better term, we'll call it a biological year. We'll say just the right that ultimately the Shulchan Aruch discusses that if it happens to be a leap year, for example, halacha l'mais. Well, actually, we'll see that in tomorrow's daf. Let me just read you the halacha. Shulchan Aruch paskins in Shin Vav Sif Zayin haBechor afilu ba'mum ne'achal toch shnaso. From where do we count ultimately the year of the Bechor? Im nolad ba'mum monalo miyom shenolad. So we'll say, so again, we're going to get into this distinction about a Baal Mum born at the time, but ultimately for our purposes, the Shulchan Aruch paskins, when do we count? Miyom shenolad, the 12 months of the Bechor. Now again, we'll see the 12 months have different ramifications if the Bechor is a Baal Mum or if the Bechor is Tam. But for our purposes today, that clock of 12 months is started ultimately at the birth of the Bechor and is not measured by a calendrical year. We'll stop and pick up in 2 dots tomorrow.